everyone, I'm Erica. Welcome back to my channel, and this is the second video in the, I don't even know if to call it a series, but just where I'm going to tackle all of the projects that I listed in a previous video that I will link in the playlist. I don't know that if I have the ability to like put it in the cards yet, but one day. So this one is the only other one that isn't a vintage pattern. I will jump into the vintage patterns on the next one. I wanted to start with these two because they are more what I'm used to, and I have never, I have worked with Vogue patterns one previous time, and that was my wedding dress, which I then redid. Haven't put that video up here yet, but this one is this one in which I'm going to be doing that style of it. So it has the tie around the neck, which the thing is I might not do a tie. I might cut that down and just either do some type of hook or button or something back there, because I don't know that I want a whole bunch of fabric right here at the back of my neck. I just really like the halter style, and I want to do that. And the ruffle is pretty big, so there's a chance I'll be taking that down just a smidgen. We will see when we get to it. So it has the top halter portion, the small bodice, and then obviously the skirt and the ruffle. The fabric that I chose for this one is this, and I don't know if that has a name for that pattern, but it's pretty. I like it. I like the fact that it's not with the ruffle. I feel like this one's going to be a little bit louder, I guess, and so I wanted to offset that with a little bit more toned down fabric. I have some louder fabrics that I'm going to do for some of the other patterns, but I figured this is a good one for this one. And I also don't know if I have enough to do the full ruffle anyway, because this is, I believe, a twin size, maybe it's queen size bed sheet. It's a bed sheet. I'm also going to have to see whether or not I have to spend the time to rip all the stitches out of the edges, because there's a chance I might need to for fabric's sake. We will see. These are very big skirt pieces. So we're going to jump into cutting. I have already got out the pattern and ironed out the pieces and separated the ones I need versus the ones I don't need. I'm going to do a quick little mock-up of the top portion of the dress first. I'm not going to do a mock-up of the skirt, but I will do a mock-up of the halter portion and then the waistband portion, just to make sure it's good. I think I know what size I need, so this is washed and ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and get the mock-up done really quick. I'm not going to film that because it's literally just going to be me throwing a few pieces together and trying to get on real quick, and it's either a yes or a no. With this style, there's really not too much to figure out. So I will meet you at the cutting. Okay, I have everything cut out, and I did only cut out four of the 6 that it says, and I'm pretty sure that that's going to be just fine for what I want. And I was getting creative because this is how much of the sheet is left, and I had to rip out every seam for the top of the sheet and the seams on the side to get the most out of the fabric to even get this much. So I wouldn't have been able to get 6 even if I had wanted to. So what I was going to show is, so there, see, this one is even pieced together right there, and I was able to get the length I needed there. And I will say, with using all of that, I went ahead and used this for the lining as well, like I did for the previous dress. I just really like being able to do that. You don't have to worry about it as much if something shows because the inside is the same as the outside. And you will see here that I think for every single part of the lining pieces, I had to piece them together to get the full piece. I did go ahead and cut out the ties, even though I'm not sure I'm going to use them as is, but I know I needed at least some of this and I didn't know how much, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on, and then I will cut it down to what I actually think I want once I have the dress on and I can actually tie it and see how it's going to look, or whether or not I even want a tie. And I will say, with this being the last of the fabric that I have left, this is it, guys. This is it. And I probably, that's 2 pieces there, but that's only 1 piece. And I might not even have this much left over at the end, because this dips down really, really, really low in the front. And it was really difficult with my mock-up without finishing all of the seams to know exactly how low. But there is a chance that there's going to be a little panel that goes between the 2 tops for me, for my own personal comfort level, and that will even use more. So I'm fine with this. Like, I absolutely love when I have an idea for a project and I have the fabric and I'm able to use it all. So there won't be leftovers that I have to figure out whether I want to do some little project or donate, but it uses it up. So let's get to construction. Right now I'm showing 2 rows of gathering stitches on the bottom of the top bodice, and then stay stitches right there on the midriff bodice piece for the front. And then after that initial stitching was done and all of the interfacing was ironed on, which you can tell which ones are the lining pieces because they're the ones with the interfacing, then became the process of seaming the top front bodice pieces to the top back bodice pieces, and then the midriff bodice to the back midriff bodice, all at the side seams. So the back seam is what is going to be open for the zipper on this dress. After all the seams were ironed out, then I pinned the top bodice to the midriff bodice all the way around, ending at that center seam, which I'm lining up in the center front because I'm going to have to knot the thread there or backstitch there and then restart on the other side of that V, and then began the process of gathering down the under bust area to fit in the midriff. And then once that was done with both sides of both the lining and the outer fabric, I just sewed them all together at that seam. Jumping over to the back tie that goes around the back of the neck, which I did end up doing. These are folded right sides together and then seamed down the tip and then down the long seam, and then the edges and corners were clipped and they were turned and pressed because, as I will show throughout the video, I did in fact do the tie. Once those were pressed flat, then they were pinned facing downward to the top of the bodice and encased in between the lining and the bodice pieces, which that's the next part of this, is the lining and the outer fabric are pinned together and sewn right sides together all the way around all the edges, except for the waist seam where the skirt will go. This was a really fast project, pretty much. I mean, it did take me a couple of days just because I didn't have a whole bunch of chunks of time, hence some of the shirt changes throughout this. And then once the dress was assembled, I had to let it hang for a little bit before I could, oh, and right here I'm doing understitching so that when it's turned correctly, it lays correctly. But yes, it was very quick. And I added pockets to it. The pattern did not have pockets, and I'm really, really glad I did. So I just used the pocket pattern from the yellow and blue flowery dress that I made a couple videos back. And I'm seaming all of these together with French seams. So they are sewn with wrong sides together all the way around, turned here at the point, and then down to the bottom of the skirt. Trimmed, turned back, so now that they are right sides together, and sewn again. And then I basted the pocket toward the front of the skirt at the waist seam, and also did right here where I'm showing a straight stitch down to close up some of that opening, because you don't need that much of an opening on a pocket. Made sure my hand could fit, and back stitched there. It was a pretty easy addition, and I'm really, really glad that I did that. The next thing was to sew the bodice to the skirt, and I don't show it, but you can see it right there. As with the yellow and blue dress, I did a slip thing under it, I guess a lining for the skirt so that you wouldn't see. And then once that seam was sewn, I'm showing it here, I pinned down the lining and then did a top stitch around the waist to finish that edge out and enclose all those raw edges. For the zipper, I basted the back two seams together and then pinned the zipper down, hand sewed the edges of the zipper down on both sides so that it would be exactly where I wanted it to be, and that way I could make sure that the waist seam was lined up exactly where it needed to be on the other side. Sewed one side of the zipper down with a zipper foot, and then took out the basting stitches, and then came back and sewed down the other side of the zipper. I hope this isn't super confusing. I know the footage is going really fast. This was a really fast project, like I said, and I'm really glad that it went really fast. But I also was working on a day where kids were home, and so there was barely any talking that was able to happen. And then here, again, French seamed all of the ruffle panels together, wrong sides, trim, right sides, and then I ironed up, I think it was about 1/4 of an inch on the bottom, so I could do a turn and turn hem, took it over and did the hem, and I love that the camera is focusing on my arm instead of the iron. And then ran 2 rows of gathering stitches all along the top of the ruffle, and only put them in between the seams so I could divide it in sections, and I didn't have one gathering stitch that ran all the way around the top of the ruffle. Then once that was done, I hung it up and sewed a hook and bar in the back above the zipper, and I think I'll jump back in a minute. Okay, the hook and I are on, well, actually it's hook and bar. I might end up changing it because just with the nature of the fabric, it was really tough for me to get the bar on, and it really wasn't easy to hook. And that's with me standing here and doing it. trying to do it on my back on myself, I'm not sure how easy that would be. So I might go fish up some more and change it out for an actual eye instead of a bar. But for now, I'm going to leave it right now. Even though I got everything else made yesterday and the ruffles ready to put on, the pattern didn't say anything about hanging it, but it's a circle skirt, so it desperately needs to hang. I mean, I'm assuming it is an old sheet, and I don't know if that makes a difference, but I already feel like I see some stretching on the bias right there. So regardless, I'm probably going to let it hang all day today. I hung it last night, and the lining also has some bias in its cut, so it's also falling, I feel like. So yeah, I'm just going to work on another project today and let that hang, and probably come back to this tomorrow and see if I need to level out the hem or how much I need to level out the hem, and then finish it up. Once I had leveled out the hem on the lining and the skirt, I did the turn and turn hem on the lining and started pinning on the ruffle, only to discover that I didn't have enough, and I will address that in a second. Okay, whoops. Okay, the ruffle is on, and as you can see, it is very lightly gathered because I think I mentioned it, but I had to take out some dart areas of the skirt to accommodate, where is it? The fact that I didn't have enough at all. So yeah, right here is one of the spots. I just pinked it at this point. I think it's got plenty of fullness. I put it back on afterwards. I haven't put it on for the final try on yet, but you can definitely tell it's supposed to be a ruffle. It's just not very full, which is fine. I didn't really want a full ruffle anyway. I wasn't expecting one this not full, but it still works. And it still has a good amount of swoosh, and yeah. Okay, final thoughts and wrap up on this first dress made out of Bedsheet. So my thoughts are torn on it. I like the style, I like the dress. I still am not 100% sure that it doesn't look like it was a bedsheet. I really did like the pattern on this sheet, but when it started coming together, I don't know if it's because it's just a duller color. I don't know, but I mean, it's comfortable. I like it. I will definitely wear it around the house for its swoosh factor. But then another thing that I don't know if it was noticeable in the reveal is how little amount of gathering there actually is on the bottom ruffle. And for that, I don't remember where I left off on filming right now. I haven't looked at the footage, but there were supposed to be 4 of the ruffle panels, and I only had enough to cut 3, or there were supposed to, anyway, there were either supposed to be like, I'm either 1 or 2 panels short, let me put it that way, on how many I was able to get out of the sheet. And so I didn't necessarily think it was going to be a problem because, you know, normally ruffles are really, really gathered, and I thought, well, it'll just be a little bit less of a gather, which is more what I want anyway. But when it actually came down to it, there wasn't that big of a ruffle, and so with what I had, it didn't even flat. It was still smaller in inches than the bottom of the skirt was. So I had to get really creative, and what I ended up doing is taking a lot of the fullness out of the skirt itself and cutting 4 little triangles out and then seaming up those seams. So there are a lot more seams in the actual skirt than the pattern calls for, because I had to do like almost like taking gores out to significantly reduce the bottom circumference of the skirt just to make the ruffle work. So it's fine. I like swooshy, but I do actually kind of like, especially with the thickness of this sheet, the fact that it's not quite as full. And I mean, there was enough, and then that took off enough for me to actually do a little bit of gathering on the ruffle, and I think it's fine. I'm definitely glad that I didn't spend more than $3 on the sheet. This may or may not be one I wear too much out of the house, but I definitely will wear it in the house. It's so comfortable, and the pockets turned out pretty good. I don't believe the pattern originally had them, so I added them. And yeah, and I had to use this linen for it because I didn't even have enough fabric of the sheet left to make pockets out of it. So I used every bit of it. So I did learn that I cannot get a full skirted anything out of a twin size sheet for myself. That's okay. This was practice. Part of the reason I wanted to use the sheet for this is, while it's not necessarily a mock-up, I guess it would be considered more of a wearable mock-up, as in I want to make this pattern again, but I will definitely use a different fabric. This one is more for just me around the house at this point, so that I can swoosh around. Yes, pleased with the pattern. I ended up not really having to add something here. I mean, I could. I'll need to wear a different bra with it. It ended up being like a 1/4 inch too big right at the tip top in the back. So that will be noted for the next time I make this pattern. But I thought I wasn't going to be comfortable with how low the V went, but I'm actually fine with it. It's fine. I would just need to wear a different bra. So I didn't need to add anything there. The other thing is, I thought I wasn't going to do the ties, but when I started getting it out, I actually really liked it. So we're just going to go with it. So yeah, those are thoughts on this dress. Overall, I am pleased with it in that I've learned a lot about the pattern. I have a fun little swooshy dress to wear around the house, and I'll definitely be making it again, but with probably something not quite as heavy. This is somewhat of a lighter sheet, but it's still heavier than what I would probably use fabric-wise to make another one. So learning happened, and I'm grateful for that. You can see, I don't know if it'll ever wash out, but you can see the original seam line above the hem in the skirt. I know it won't show up on camera, so I'm not even gonna put it up there, but that's how, like, I had to take out every seam of this sheet just to try to eke every square inch I could out of it, and I still didn't have enough. But now I know, and I know for sure I could get this dress out of like a queen sheet if I were to ever find something like that again. But I do have other fabric options I can use. So thanks for joining me for this one. I can't wait to get into the next one. The next one is the first vintage Vogue pattern for a dress, and it's done, and I ended up wearing it for Easter with the dress I made my daughter, and it was a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about that pattern. So I would love it if you would like and subscribe and tell me what you think about the dress and the pattern, and if you have any suggestions on other fabrics that might work. I do work with a lot of thrift store finds, so you know, I'm kind of limited on just going out and picking anything. But yes, thanks for joining me again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.